It is the 41st millennium. Mankind battles for survival across the universe, besieged on all fronts by the heretic, the mutant, and the alien. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. One faction of Space Marines stands amidst the chaos, the mightiest of the Emperor's warriors, and a beacon of light in the darkness. This legion, the 9th Legion of Adeptus Astartes, the Blood Angels.
Hey, good evening, guys. What's happening? What is happening? Hello, hello, hello. Warm day here in Scotland today, actually. It was like 31 degrees earlier. So the window open. So I'm going to have to swat some flies tonight, no doubt, in here. Let me put on some music. How is everybody tonight? Evening, Miles. Evening, Juan. Evening, Carl, Candace, Monkey, Gregory. Hello, everybody. How are you all? We're having a good Saturday. I'm gonna be just off screen, actually. Move this. Here's in this giant assortment of arms and shit that I got together for. I've got some old metal assault marines. This assault marine is a special one. He actually has Dante's jump pack on him. Look at that, an old metal Dante jump pack on him. I don't know how old these guys are, honestly. I get some real I don't know. 10th edition has 10th edition is great. But it's kind of screwed. All the models that I have finished are irrelevant now. Apparently I need loads of new stuff. So we start by looking at some metal assault marines, get some different arms on them. I'm glad to see YouTube actually send notifications. A lot of people miss them. Over here, just off camera, I have this pristine-ish plastic Predator tank from, I don't know how old this is. This thing's probably 25 years old. It's never ever had a. Did it get? I don't think this ever got a coat of paint. Yeah, so I get like a 25-year-old Predator tank here, which I guess needs some paint on it. I also got a metal Vindicator tank here. This is the old Vindicator, like when it didn't even have a seed shield. Believe it or not, this was the shield back then. This little thing. Yeah, so I guess I've got this. I'm probably going to make the shield yellow, actually, put some hazard stripes on it. This is a weird kit, actually. I don't even know what's supposed to go in that hole at the top. Like, I guess it would be a stormbolt or something. This is just a big hunking bit of metal in there. It's like the gun and these armor panels on the side are metal, and then the rest of it's just like a plastic rhino underneath. I don't know. So yeah, apparently these things are good now. These things are what you should run if you're playing Blood Angels. Beats me. So yeah, get into your bits box. Find the classic models. I guess the sergeant, the guy with Dante's jump pack, he's going to be the sergeant. He's going to have a power fist, an infernal pistol, and a shield. And then we'll see what shoulder pads we've got kicking around. I used to prime everything red like forever ago. You can tell that these are forever ago because I didn't even deal with like some of these mold lines and bits, and that's horrific actually how bad those are. These would have been done, like these have been in a bits box for 25 years, guys, honestly. Like these are just not, I don't know, just not relevant, I guess, for the longest time. But they are relevant now.
Monkey Llama's building an old Demon Prince today. I've got an old Demon Prince sculpt as well, actually, I think. Mine's on sprue as well. Yeah, look at, like, big giant clipper bits of plastic left on these models as well. I'll just paint over that. I don't really care about re-undercoating it. I'm not thrilled to have to basically bench all my Sanguinary Guard, all my Vanguard veterans, probably all the Death Company as well, and run Assault Marines. I feel like I'm not thrilled about that in the slightest. I've never had that many Assault Marines. I mean, I guess maybe I had Assault Marines 20 years ago. That's why these guys exist. I actually found like a bunch of them that were still on, like, just off camera here. I was having a look at what I've got. So I got a bunch of old Assault Marines that I think I sprayed over. I think these guys were painted before, and then they got sprayed over. This is another metal jump pack. I don't even know what. That looks like a character's jump pack, honestly. Like, was that just a normal metal jump pack? Maybe it's just a normal metal jump pack. I don't even remember when you last did metal jump packs. These guys are on like the tiny little bases. They need base extenders. That's what I put onto the Sergeant. So yeah, I'm actually gonna need super glue here, haven't I? Yeah. I went with 35 jump packs and 3 Predator Annihilators for a game. Oh well. I don't know if I'm going to be running as much as 35 jump pack Marines. I haven't had much luck with jump pack Marines, honestly. Yet. In 10th. I guess we'll see. Ah, balls. I hate super glue, man. That's the one thing that I like the most about the new plastic kits. Like, I just hate having to super glue stuff. It's probably why I'm not... Do you know what? I built a lot of Forge World stuff, but I never really enjoyed building the Forge World kits, I think. All of them had problems with, like, needing massive amounts of super glue on parts and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess these plastic guys are gonna need super glued. Good evening, Afok. How are you? I was thinking about the Sergeant with a Thunderhammer, but I think I'm off Thunderhammers, honestly. I think it's because of the built-in -1 to hit. I think that really hurts Thunderhammers, probably more than you would think. I think for me it hurts them enough to the point where, like, I'm just not going to run them. So I did get a metal Meltagun, for whatever that's worth. So it was a metal hand and Meltagun. I had to super glue that on. That wasn't much fun. And I found one Eviscerator for the Assault Marines. So I had this Eviscerator, and then I built an Eviscerator. I cut a chainsword in half and stuck a bit of, like, a corn chainsword to the top of it. So I don't know how that'll look. I'm hoping when it'll look painted you won't be able to see the join very well. I might sand it down, I guess we'll see. But so I've built my own Eviscerator. I couldn't find a second Eviscerator, which is surprising considering how many kits and stuff that I have. I couldn't find one. I looked in depth. Eternal Crusader, what's happening? War Thunder, good evening, how are you? I think this metal Meltagun actually fits that metal Mortador best. Yeah, I think he does. Alright, the metal guy can get the metal Meltagun, I guess that would make sense anyway. Eternal Crusader, how are you? He's working on the new Terminators. I haven't even started any of the new stuff. I want to, it feels really weird that, like,
the classic stuff that I've never really run as Blood Angels is now the best stuff. And the new Terminators. Well, I basically ran 10 of those new Terminators. They didn't do that well for me. And even a knight with -1 damage and basically +1 to its save. Like, the chain fist didn't do anything to it. It was ridiculous. It was with full Oath of Moment on it as well. It sucked. Are Land Raiders worth taking now? With a unit of Blade Guard or Terminator, says Lionheart. You know, I can't decide, Lionheart. I feel like they're too expensive. Like, for my next game, I feel like, yeah, I guess it's cool to get the Blade Guard up the board and potentially charge out of the Land Raider or something. Or Terminators, like you said, but Land Raiders are like 255 points. When I played them, it didn't seem like they did very much damage. Maybe I was just unlucky. When you just have a few las cannons, you don't really have any rerolls on them. I never seem to do that much damage with them. I tried to run Land Raiders in 9th edition as well. I mean, I think there were even more points in 9th edition, but yeah, I don't know. I've run a Land Raider once in 10th so far. I feel like I wasn't overly impressed with it. I mean, I'm not gonna write it off because I've only run it once. But I think like I am likely to run a repulsor as well and then get back to you, because I don't know. You're paying a lot of points for that assault ramp with Land Raiders, I think. So I guess like you've got to make use of the assault ramp to make it work. If they were weapon skill 3+ and -1 to hit, hammers would be fine. It's starting 4s and possibly going to 5 is brutal. Yeah, I think that's the problem with hammers now, is going to 5 and only doing 2 damage is brutal. Into a -1 to hit enemy or a -1 damage enemy, Death Company are like seriously weak now. I always used to say in last edition, like I always used to say in 9th edition, you needed those 3 damage weapons, right? We talked about that a million times on my stream. Like, you needed that 3 damage in melee for certain matchups, because if you come up to -1 damage enemies and you only get 2 damage, you basically half your damage and it's brutal. War Thunder says, I have a Land Raider, but I'm on the fence between the Redeemer and the Crusader. Well, I've got the Crusader and I don't feel inclined to run it. Whereas I feel like I would run the Redeemer because of the Overwatch potential. So I know the Redeemer is more expensive, but I think if you're gonna run a Land Raider, I think the Redeemer maybe is the way to go. I think it's tough though. Like, I think it's a tough. Yeah, I think it's a tough call because you don't want it to be super expensive. But yeah, I think it was me, because I have a Crusader and I'm not sold on it. So I think if I was building a Land Raider right now, I'd probably build a Redeemer. VT Jord. Hey John, love the channel. Not sure if you've seen my post on Facebook yet, but glad to see you're getting your Assault Marines on the table. I don't use Facebook all that much at the weekends because I've got 2 young kids. So like I don't really get time to go on my phone at the weekend. But yeah, it's a bit weird to be building Assault Marines, honestly. Like I got like maybe, let me think about this. I've got like 20 fully painted Death Company. I've got 25 fully painted Sanguinary Guard. I think I've got like 18 or 19 fully painted Vanguard Vets, and I've got 0 fully painted Assault Marines. Part of me is kind of okay with it, because I'm like, cool, it's given me motivation to finish the Assault Marines that you see here that have been sat languishing for like 20 years. But the other part of me is like, man, I don't really want to paint Assault Marines. They don't excite me. They're just the hot thing right now. I guess I've got to do it because I want to be competitive. Surfsong says Land Raiders don't do much damage for the points. Yeah, that was my feeling when I used it. I feel like you've got to make good use of that assault ramp, or I think it's hard to run, or a Land Raider is just going to feel like a lot of points.
But then, yeah, I mean, Eternal Crusader is saying that I have played Knights and I have played Eldar, which are arguably the most broken armies. Have you had a chance to try the Eradicator with Apothecary, Biologist, and Bolter Discipline thing? I have done that, Todd, and I kind of thought it sucked. I think you're better. I think you're better with Desolation Marines. The problem with Eradicators now is wounding on 5s, even with full reroll, sucks. I think I had like the whole Eradicator squad, which was what, like 4 multi-melta shots and 4 melt. So I think it's 8 shots. I think only bursted 1, so it was 9 shots. And then I think I remember I only got 2 through to the damage stage. So the whole 6-man squad of Eradicators with the Biologist, with the Bolter Discipline did 6 damage tonight. It sucked. And that was with full rerolls and everything. So, I mean, I'm probably not going to run Eradicators again. I think it's a bit unfair how, like, Space Marines Melta is still 8, or Strength 8, or Strength 9. And you've got, like, Knights Melta, which is Melta 4, and Strength 12. It's like, what? Armigers are, like... If you compare Armigers against, like, I guess, like, a Redemptor Dreadnought, like, it's really... I feel like I don't get it. An Armiger moves faster, it's got more toughness, it's got way more OC, it's got way better weapons. The only thing it loses is, like, the Redemptor has +1 to its save. I guess you have -1 damage, but, you know, that doesn't come up all that much anymore. Evening, Michael, how are you? For anti-tank, Lancers are good, yes. What also would be good is, like, maybe some Predators. I mean, I've got a Predator here on the table, maybe a Vindicator. I've got a Vindicator here on the table just to throw some paint on. Big Dirt says, I'm pumped to see your loadout. Well, I think it's going to be 10. It's going to be 10 Assault Marines, isn't it? With 2 Melta Guns, 2 Eviscerators, and the Sergeant with an Infernal Pistol, Power Fist, and a Shield, because he's allowed all of those. So my trick is going to be figuring out where... I think the Shield's going to have to go in the Infernal Pistol arm. I think I'm just going to try and stick it like that. So I think I need to put a shoulder pad on this guy first, so that then we can fit the shield on. This is actually a combat shield from an old... It's actually probably an old Vanguard veteran. It might even be an old Assault Squad quit. Yeah, I mean, Sanguinary Guard, they need to come down in points for... Well, I mean... Strength 5 -2 damage isn't just not good anymore, I feel like. I mean, there's not too much more to say. That I just don't think it's good. There's too many targets in the game that will just shrug off Strength 5 -2 damage. Even with lethal hits on 5s, yeah, I mean, when I ran the Eradicators, it was super underwhelming. I thought it would be good. It felt super underwhelming, so I think if I'm going to run Bolter Discipline, I think it works best on the Desolation Marines. I think it works best on Weight of Fire. Eradicators don't have Weight of Fire. And then think about this, like Armigers, for example. Like, I was struggling with Armigers. Well, Desolation Marines wound Armigers on 4s, whereas like Eradicators wound Armigers on 5s. It makes no sense, man. You can't decide if you're going to paint the Leviathan box Ultramarines or Blood Angels. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Because there's no requirement to have them painted a certain way for a certain army. So you can paint them the hell you want and then just bring them into whatever faction of Marines you want, right? So paint them Blood Angels because they're cooler than Ultramarines. Let's be real here. I don't mind Ultramarines, but they're definitely not as cool as Blood Angels.
So this guy's gonna have an eviscerator and a knife because I converted the eviscerator so I can't have him holding it two hands. So he's got an eviscerator and a knife because he's a mentalist. Because he's a cool blood angel. And you wouldn't get an ultramarine that has an eviscerator and a knife now, would you? And this guy's got an eviscerator and a grenade because he's also cool and mental. Because, like, if you can't kill him with the eviscerator, you kill him with the grenade. That's how we do it. Peachmonger says, hi John, recently found the channel, trying to get back into 40k after hiatus. Well, welcome back, Peachmonger. If you're doing Blood Angel stuff, you found the right channel. Because that's literally all we do here. Someone posted a YouTube comment this week saying, if you want your channel to be successful, you need to do more. Like, someone posted on my channel saying, like, if you want your channel to be successful, you need to do more than Blood Angels. And I was like, dude, like, have you looked at the channel name? I mean, it's literally Blood Angels Commander. Like, what do you want? Fucking videos on Eldar? I mean, like, that's you're in the wrong place. Here we do videos on Blood Angels, right? Evening, Michael. Do you know what? Michael's saying that he thinks that we need to max out squads. If you're attaching characters to squads, it does make sense to try and max them out. Here's the kicker, though, right? The maximum squads don't... It's kind of weird. Miles was talking about it when we played this week, and he was basically saying, like... Remember when we always used to tell people, like, Sangre Guard work best in 7s? If you're going to run a squad of Sangre Guard, you want them as a 7-man. We talked about that a bunch of times on the channel. And in a way, that's kind of... It's something that's sort of kind of weird that's happened, where it's like, well, now you're forced to run a 10. And a 10 for Sangre Guard, we can probably all agree, isn't optimal. So what happens is you run the 10, and then you end up losing a bunch of models because... Or you lose extra models that you don't need, that you potentially didn't need because you've been forced to run the 10. So infantry kind of have a big disadvantage here, I feel like, in that you're basically forced to run non-optimal sizes. You think you want to run the 10, but you actually don't want to run the 10 because then you're susceptible to blast and stuff, you know? So it's like infantry is actually quite difficult to know the right size of squad right now. And I get you want to attach your characters, so you want to have 10 in the squad because you think you're going to get the most value out of it. But at the same time, like, my experience from playing a few games is telling me, like, well, when I run a 10, what will happen is we'll get into combat, we'll get stuck out in the open because we've killed the unit that we're fighting with a 10, and then we could potentially lose all 10 Marines. Whereas before, yes, your Sangre Guard might get stuck out in the open, but it wasn't a 10, it was only a 7 or something. So if we lose all 7, it's not the end of the world. If you lose 10 Sangre Guard in a shooting phase, in 10th edition, I'd say... I mean, if your game's not over, it's a bloody miracle, because that's a horrific amount of Sangre Guard to lose. I like this glue. Some people don't. I think it's great. It seems to set reasonably quick. It works even like these guys. These models are obviously already sprayed. You can see that. So I'm gluing on top of paint, and it's working pretty quickly. Blood Angels and Other Assorted Xenos Commander. Yeah, that should be my new name. How would you... I don't know what your question is, Julian. I'm not sure I understand it. Todd was laughing hard at that comment. Yeah, I laughed a bit at that comment as well. Good evening, Highland Phoenix. How are you? What do I think of Mephiston in 10th? Difficult to play effectively. Like, because his weapon is strength 9, it's really weird, I suppose, like, just... Like, I'd say Mephiston still has the problems he had before, right? Like, he's still not going to be optimal. Well, like, can he kill some vehicles? Maybe, maybe not. I like that he makes you fight first. I mean, that's cool. I definitely like that. I just don't know if I feel like... don't know if I feel like Mephiston is quite survivable. Well, I mean, I guess he's not super survivable. A little bit more survivable than he was. This old metal model apparently is holding the meltagun at a really awkward angle. I don't know if I've got an arm that will hold it well enough. I'm maybe gonna have to just have him where his hand isn't. Kind of looks a bit weird. His arm just isn't quite long enough for this stupid metal model. I might cut his fingers off, actually. That might be the way to do it. I mean, he doesn't need fingers, does he? Yeah, screw it. I've got plenty of these sprayed arms. I'll cut the fingers off and see if this looks okay. Highland Phoenix is currently building 3 command squads. What's the play, Highland Phoenix? What's the play behind 3 command squads? Yeah, I think it'll work better with the arm, with the fingers cut off. Oh, this is a metal model. I need super glue. A 10-man brick of Jump Pack Death Company with Lamartes is a big chunk of it as well. I didn't find that 10-man Death Company with Lamartes all that useful, but then maybe Knights are just too powerful, dude. I didn't do barely any damage to the Knights, and then he just mopped everything up. The problem, I think, with fighting Knights as well is bloody tank shock. So if before, you could end up, like, you could surround a unit, and then they maybe only have, like, armigers or something nearby, and you'd be like, cool, this unit will surround them. But now the Knight will just shoot you in combat with a ridiculous, like, it's only going to be -1 to hit, so, like, what was it, the Warden's still hitting on 4s. So the Warden just shoots so much damage into you in combat. And then like, a friggin'... what are they called? Not the Warglavies, the other armigers. Oh, I know what they're called, I can't think. They're not called Helverins, right? The Helverin will charge you and just tank shock you and just do a bunch of mortal wounds to you. And it's like, ugh. Knights seem really good at the moment. It would be cooler if Mephiston could go with Blade Guard. Yeah, do you know what? If Mephiston went with Blade Guard, maybe I'd be more sold on him, honestly. I don't mind Assault Intercessors, I don't mind Sternguard, but they're not my, like, favourite / preferred. Am I running Sanguinior at all? I ran them in my first 2 battles. I'm not running them now. I think they're too expensive. I don't think they synergize very well with Dante, which is a little bit sad, because I was excited to run Dante in 10th edition, now that I actually have the model. I don't think they synergize too well with Dante. I think they're better with a captain if you were going to run Sanguinior, and also, yeah, they're just too expensive. They're 43 points per model, it's ridiculous. The 5-man Death Company squad seems like a missile with OC0 without a chaplain. So, I thought that when I first looked at it on paper. Freighter. Guys, by the way, we've got 46 people watching, we get 9 likes. So if anyone's got 2 seconds, hit that like button. It does help me out. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so I thought, like, on paper, right? Like, if you go back in edition, you look at the Death Company, and I think if you put the 5... Let me get this right. I think if you put 5 Thunderhammers in a squad of Death Company, right, in last edition, that would be 165 points, right? So everybody sort of looked at it now and went like, cool, it's only 155 points for your 5 Death Company with hammers. So that's better, that's an upgrade, right? I think I've just blocked this glue nozzle. God damn it. Hold on a minute. I'll fix it. Give me 1 second. I need fire. Fixed. If you ever block these nozzles, just use a lighter on them for like 1-2 seconds. That's all it takes. I tried to unblock them before, like sticking a damn safety pin down it or something. It's ridiculous. But oh god, that shoulder pad has a giant bit of sprue still attached to it. I'm gonna take it off before I stick that back on. Yeah, sorry, my point. Everybody looked at that Death Company, 165 points, and went like, in 10th edition it goes down to 155. That's an upgrade, right? So having played them in a couple, and now they get free rerolls, right? So they get like rerolls built in. So you think to yourself, like, 10 points cheaper, and it's still Thunderhammers, and it's rerolls built in, and it's OC 0, which I guess Death Company didn't really hold. I mean, I guess occasionally they could hold objectives, but that wasn't really their point on the battlefield, right? But like, if you really want to start looking at that Death Company, right? Like looking at it objectively. Well, last edition you could put them in Assault Doctrine for 1 more AP and 1 more. What was it? 1 more AP and 1 more attack. So straight away, like, you've got 5 Thunderhammer attacks as opposed to 3. I mean, I guess you can get 4 Thunderhammers if you're in the the Sons of Sanguinius detachment. But anyway, so you're one less attack to start with, right? Last edition, you could get full rerolls from like being next to Dante or something like that. So you got the same rerolls. Last edition, you could get exploding 6s from Mephiston. So basically now you've got, what was it, hitting on 4s, full rerolls, an extra AP and exploding 6s. And finally, you could also use your Sangari Priest to give them +1 to hit. So what you've actually gone from is, yes, it's 10 points cheaper, right? But if you talk about having like a raw missile, last edition you could have Thunderhammers hitting on 3s as opposed to hitting on 4s. You could have an extra attack, you could have an extra AP. I think I'm still missing something. Oh, and exploding 6s, right? And that's a missile. And none of those characters need to be at risk because they can all those buffs can be inferred from like positions of cover. So when you actually start to break it down like that, I guess my question is, do you still think Death Company are really good? Because for me, it's like, well, I've played them a few times now, and I'm not sure I'm seeing it. I think that's possibly just the fairest way to say it. Like, I'm not sure I'm seeing it. Because, I mean, I beat opponents that were, like, back when Nids were, like, all the rage. Everyone was running Leviathan Nids, was it? 4-up transhuman, no one was beating them. I beat them at a tournament. One of the tournaments I actually have a medal for behind me. And one of the reasons I beat them at the tournament was because in turn 1 I took my 5 Death Company. I don't even think I had 5 hammers in the squad. I think I had 4 hammers and 1 guy with an Infernal Pistol and a Chainsword. And I went, right, +1 to hit, 4 rerolls, Assault Doctrine, exploding 6s, and then a 12-inch pre-game move because I'm going first. And I just jumped straight in on their, what's the thing that throws out the mortal wounds like no tomorrow? Malceptor, that was it. So I jumped in on their Malceptor with my Death Company, killed it turn 1, and that basically won me the game. And yeah, I mean, I suppose I don't remember if I probably didn't use Overwatch Denial on the Malceptor, but it was, it's possible. I could have paid 1 CP and stopped them overwatching as well if I felt I needed to. Yeah, so it's like, when we first look at Death Company, or when I first looked at Death Company a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, Death Company with full rerolls and maybe Infernal Pistol's power fists is really good. But when you actually start breaking it down, it's like, well, actually, it's a lot weaker. Yes, it's 10 points cheaper. I mean, the other thing to say as well, on that, if you go back 1 edition as well, the Thunderhammers were also 3 damage. They're now only 2 damage. So, like, 1 less attack, 1 less AP, 1 less damage, less rerolls, harder to hit, no bursting 6s. It's actually kind of insane how much weaker they are. But yeah, I mean, I suppose, like, you were never expecting them to survive your opponent's turn anyway, right? That was the real missile. And that was a good missile, and you could do that in turn 1, and you could do it again in turn 2, and basically, like, you would basically spend 2 turns hiding your whole force and just send out your 2 5-man death company to wipe out their 2 hardest hitting units, and then you could start playing the game in turn 3. And I mean, that's kind of... I mean, Blood Angels kind of had to sit a little bit anyway, right? Halberds are the armigers with autocannons. Yeah, how did I feel about Jack's list on Art of War? I saw Art of War's list. It seems like a lot of people are going 3 Gladiator Lancers now, right? And I guess that a lot of people think that Gladiator Lancers are really strong, which they probably are because of sort of like the built-in rerolls. I'm a bit worried though, because like if everybody goes 3 Gladiator Lancers, because that's what people are going right now, you can guarantee that the Gladiator Lancer is going to go up 20 points or it's going to get nerfed some other way, right? So it's and Gladiators are quite expensive tanks, so it's like I'm not sure I want to run out and buy 2 more Gladiators. It's not that I'm not convinced about the Gladiator Lancer. I just think that, like, if Space Marines are relying on Lancers that heavily, like, surely they gotta... I don't know, it feels like if... It's hard to argue, like, I mean, the Gladiator Lancer is super reliable, right? Like, it hits 2 shots on 2s with 1 reroll, it wounds probably on 2s or 3s with 1 reroll. Does it get a reroll damage as well? Maybe it doesn't get a reroll damage, but hits and wounds... I don't think I'm going to try and make that 10-man Death Company squad with Power Fists and Infernal Pistols. I think that's the strongest way to run them, but I think I'm just going to try and... It seems like never-ending needing new squads with new loadouts. It just feels never-ending at the moment, I'm not sure how I would feel about it. It's like I think it was Candace ripped like 10 Vanguard Veteran Arms off, you know, to make us more Assault Marines or something, and I was like, man, I just can't. I feel like I can't bring myself to rip the arms off finished models for, you know, how long are... It's almost like a bad joke, like how often they change what weapon is best. The problem I have with Sons of Sanguinius, and we were talking about this a little bit in Discord, right? I wonder if Sons of Sanguinius would have been better or stronger or more viable, however you want to put it, if it had been +1 attack and +1 AP. Because +1 AP would be much more relevant than +1 strength. Because with the changes to toughness, for example, right, you know, like toughness 12 knights. Well, even with your +1 strength from Sanguinary Guard charging, you're still only wounding in the knights on 6s. Because your strength 5 against toughness 12, or your strength 6 against toughness 12, it's all going to be 6s, right? The plus strength doesn't actually help you at all from Sons of Sanguinius. So the plus strength is going to probably help you into units that you possibly don't need help into, right? Like Sanguinary Guard attacking, I don't know, anything that's toughness 5 or less, the Sanguinary Guard are probably going to do pretty well into. +1 strength is maybe going to make your wound roll better, but probably if you're running a big squad of Sanguinary Guard, you're going to overkill that unit anyway. At the moment, 10th edition for me is a little bit tricky to figure out, and that's why I've been running Gladiators. And I think, like, this week when I run an army list, it's going to be Gladiators as well. Sim said, I watched a few battle reports where mortals won against big models like the Lion. I think 5 sets of Thunderhammer Death Company is still a good play. Maybe leave those 10 blocks of Power Fists and Infernals. I think 5-man Thunderhammer Death Company are counterable by anyone that is -1 to... They felt pretty counterable against the Knights, right? Like, if you're -1 to hit... And then I guess Eldar as well, they felt pretty countered. Like, if the enemy can make you -1 to hit, those hammers become really shit really fast. So I don't know if I rate Devastating Wounds at all. Like, the thing that's done the most mortal wounds for me in the recent games that I've played is the Assault Marines led by a chaplain. And if you think the Assault Marines are...
I have awoken.
Hey, GJ, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I do really appreciate it. So for me, it's like... I don't know, I'm really... Like... I think in my next battle, or my next army that I run, I'm going to run 1 block of 10-man Assault Marines. They're so cheap, and they can do potentially, like... Well, I mean, I think every time they finish a charge, you're probably going to do like 5 or 6 mortals. If they're led by a chaplain, maybe just up that to, like, on average, like 7 or 8 mortals. So the mortals will be huge on everything that they charge. And their mortals feel to me more reliable than Devastating Wound mortals, for sure. I think both are... Because I've used those Thunderhammer Death Company a few times now, right? And like, when you actually break it down and you go and you get to the wound roll, so you've rolled to hit and you're rolling to wound, most of the time I think I've done it, I've had like 2 6s. So you get 4 mortals. So, but, I mean, although you get 4 mortals, you give up a bunch of damage, or you get, you know, the damage that you would be doing becomes mortals, which is fine, that's fine. But like, Assault Marines are going to do 6 mortal wounds on average, probably, in addition to any damage they do. They don't have to give up any of their damage. I think there's something to be said about that guy that just did the best Blood Angels list this weekend, or last weekend, right? I haven't looked at tournaments yet this weekend. But the best Blood Angels list last weekend run 2 10-man squads of Assault Marines. And I honestly think the Mortal Wounds is carrying them. Or carried that list, right? Because we can all sit here and agree it's much harder to wound armor, and it's much harder to wound enemies, and it's much easier for them to save now as well because our AP is kind of crappy. Like 2 AP on the Sanguinor Guard. I mean, last edition was it 4 AP? I think we could get 5 AP as well with Red Rampage. I think that's why I'm very surprised actually that there's no way to increase AP in the Sons of Sanguinius detachment, right? Because there's a way to increase AP in Gladiators, but there's not in the Sons of Sanguinius. I don't know. I'm sure I will play Sons of Sanguinius at some point on the channel, probably sooner rather than later. But I think this week I'm going to run Gladiators again. It's just going to make more sense for the army that I'm going to be running this week, I think. But I'm not convinced. I'm really not convinced of +1 strength actually being that useful. I mean, I'm yet to be in a game where it felt really useful. Because the first game I played, it was like, the problem was the guy had 10 Wraith Blades. And Wraith Blades are toughness 7. So +1 strength did not help my Sanguinor Guard, +1 strength did not help my Death Company, and I basically had to commit... I think I just commit Dante and 5 Sanguinor Guard and 5 Death Company to the Wraith Blades, and I didn't kill them all, and then I got stuck in combat for like a bunch of turns, and basically lost the game, because I couldn't kill the 10-man blob of Wraith Blade with my 2 units. I think in Wraithblade have a 4-up. They got a 2-up save. I'm not sure if they still have an invuln, but I know they've got a 2-up save. So maybe, you know, do the Wraithblades still have an invuln? I don't know actually. But yeah, the +1 strength didn't help me at all. I think +1 AP would have been better. Criticism: sticking with assault squads and vanguards for a little while and Gladiator's detachment to see the flow. Yeah, I mean, the one nice thing about the assault squad and the vanguards, right, is that they can actually have a Sanguinary Priest attached to get the 5-up and the extra point of AP. So it's just weird that in Gladiators you can make chainswords -3. Because when you actually make chainswords -3, they actually become pretty killy. Assuming you can wound, I suppose. But if you've got a chaplain attached, then you get, or a captain for the free honor of the chapter, then you get -3 on your chainswords and you get +1 to wound. It's not the end of the world. And then potentially you get 6 mortal wounds when you charge. I think this for me it's the almost guaranteed 6 mortal wounds, or you know, Laws of Average says most of the time when those guys charge, you'll lose 6 mortal wounds. There's the AP increasing speeder thing. Is that for shooting and melee, or is that just for shooting, Nathan? I think I do like the Storm Speeder for I like the Storm Speeder for buffing wound rolls. Like I've used it very briefly for buffing wound rolls, I guess. Lionheart says I want to try Primaris Tech Marine with 2 Redemptors running around. So I had a lot of success last edition with the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. I ran a double Redemptor list to a tournament where I beat the #1 player in Scotland. I ran, I think, 1 Redemptor and 2 Contemptors to a GT where I think I finished 6th, but based on that new thing that they released where they said, like, what was that thing they said? It was like, I can't remember what they said. It was like you would play, your scoring would be based on your tournament flow or something. So like I ran three Dreadnoughts to a tournament where like I was at the top table for the final game. It was me and one other guy were 4-0, and basically whoever won the game won the tournament. Unfortunately, that game I played terrible and also played against an army I'd never played against before. So, I mean, that didn't help. I knew nothing about what my opponent had, right? But I was only one, you know... So I was basically... I did pretty well with my double Dreadnought list. And I like double Redemptor. I liked it last edition. I thought it was pretty good. However, having ran a Redemptor already this edition, it felt like the Redemptor's guns are not fit for purpose, right? I was like, when I first saw it in Codex, I was like, oh cool, they finally gave an extra bit of reliability to the Redemptor in that they gave it like +1 shots, right? Because the biggest problem with the Redemptor Dreadnoughts, in my opinion, like in 9th edition, was the D6 shots. So like running D6 shots to a tournament is kind of risky and generally can feel pretty bad. Because like when you need a decent amount of shots, you're going to roll 1, and if you CP that, you're probably going to roll 1 again, right? So that was not... Having ran a Redemptor in 9th edition now, or 10th edition, sorry, I can tell you, like, I think like it just bounced off the enemy armor. Like, the main point of the Redemptor was to have some firepower that could deal with armor, right? Like the macro plasma cannon, and it just doesn't deal with armor now. So like, it's, and also let's face it, Redemptors are crazy expensive, like 225 points, I think. I have no idea why they're 225 points. I ran one and just thought it was like, well, I ran it and then I was like, I'm never running this again at 225 points. Like, it just was bad. It was just really... I've got 3 Redemptors, man. Like I said, I ran them to a bunch of events last edition because I I was one of the Blood Angels players that didn't conform, like... I don't like to conform, I guess. Like, if everyone's saying, like, you must run 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard to be competitive as Blood Angels, I was like, well, I like Sanguinary Guard, but I don't know if I ever ran 3 to a tournament. 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard to a tournament. I don't think I ever did that. You know, I just like to run things that I think is strong, not maybe follow the herd or whatever. Blood Angels should be rewarded for running melee-centric lists. Yes, that's what we should be rewarded for, and I think they've I think what they wanted to by giving us, you know, by keeping the Red Thirst similar. I think they wanted to do that, but I think their implementation of it has been poor. Like, it's just in the new landscape of things, where like lots of things have really increased toughness. Well, they made it, you know, they took away the +1 to wound, which helped us deal with high toughness. So, and +1 strength. It's the same problem with like Death Guard. I was saying to Colin, like, Death Guard used to have the -1 toughness aura. I mean, they still have it, right? Like, but I was saying to Colin, what I think they should have done with Death Guard is they shouldn't have given them a -1 toughness aura. They should have just given them, like, +1 to wound if you were in contagion range. Because, like, you know, -1 toughness probably doesn't make all that much difference, right? You know, like, the enemy's got, like, a tank, toughness 12 or something, or a knight or something. -1 toughness, oh, it's toughness 11 now. That's going to be a lot easier to wound, right? Well, not really. Like, -1 toughness on a giant toughness vehicle doesn't really do much. Maybe in, like, one weapon, like your high damage las cannon or something, it might make it, like, 1 point easier to wound. But for 90% of the weapons in your army, it makes no difference. Right? So I was saying to Colin, like, I'm not a Death Guard player, but having read the Death Guard rules and stuff, I was like, they really should have done... Death Guard's aura, in my opinion, should have been, if you're within contagion range, it's +1 to wound. That would have probably, like, because Death Guard at the moment are coming in with one of the lowest win rates in the whole game, and I was like, if you make, you know, because yeah, there's probably like an edge situation where that -1 toughness does help, right? You know, like you're fighting a toughness 4 character, and you've got strength 6 weapons. So in this one random case across the whole battle, it helps. But that shouldn't be like their army. That shouldn't be like their whole army relying on that. I think it's rubbish. Miguel says 20 Terminators works beautifully. I ran 10 this week, Miguel, and I don't know, it didn't work beautifully for me, but I mean, I was playing knights. And I mean, knights are pretty good at the moment. Death Company Dreadnought 195 points, Fuel Soul Dreadnought 165, Librarian Dreadnought 185. Any of them have any play or not worth it. I think if you're running a Chaplain somewhere else on the board, the Death Company Dreadnought could have some play, but I do think 195 is overcosted when you compare him to like an Ironclad for 150. Like, I don't know why he's 195 compared to the Ironclad at 150, because they basically do the same thing. Corbulo doesn't have a jump pack. Yeah, Corbulo's ability is pretty great, actually. In that he gives +1 attacks, but the squads he can attach to are rubbish. Like, he can attach to a tactical squad. Cool, +1 attack on a tactical squad. Yeah, I mean... I don't know. Jim says they killed the flavour of BA. I don't know if they killed the flavour of it. It'll come back. They were too heavy-handed. And this is do you know what, the second I start talking about Mark, he's going to appear in the channel, so just full disclaimer, Mark, I'm not saying anything negative, but I had a chat with Mark who is one of our admins over on the Discord server and Facebook, and also he's one of the Groks. Like, we do the weekly podcast together, or the bi-weekly podcast together. And having spoken to Mark, I basically said to him, like, I think it's good that we have not got our Codex at the start of the edition, because some armies already are on that roadmap for getting their Codex. And I spoke to a guy that's an AdMech player, and AdMech were in a weird place last edition, right? AdMech came out, they're super strong, or they were quite strong, and then they got hit by like the nerf bat straight away, and then they were kind of trash tier for the rest of the edition. I feel like would be fairly accurate to say. So, and he was saying like AdMech are one of the first armies that are going to get a Codex in 10th, and he was actually saying like he doesn't want his Codex. Like he's scared because he thinks that the AdMech Codex, like if it's coming out soon, he thinks it will have to have been written like a couple of months ago. And he was saying like, based on what we're seeing right now, he feels like a couple of months ago there was very little playtesting going on in 10th edition. So like he really doesn't want his Codex right now because he feels like when they get it, it's not going to be strong at all because it was probably made or print. It would have had to be at the printers like a couple of months ago. And I was like, that's a really good point, and that's why I didn't want the Blood Angels Codex in the first wave of codexes, right? Because like if we were getting our Codex like in the first wave of codexes, there's a chance that like they wrote it 3 months ago at this point, where they thought like, oh, Blood Angels will be fine with like 43 points per model Sangre Guard. Like, no idea who thought that was viable, but they obviously have never played a game of Blood Angels in their life, because I could tell you last edition when they were like 32 points per model, people were having to cut way down on them because they were like, that was sort of the limit. Like at 32 points per model, you were like, okay, probably want to lean more heavily into Death Company. So at 43 points per model, like more than Terminators, like I don't know who came up with that. Anyway, so I think it's good that we don't have our Codex coming right now. So hopefully it means that like there's a bit of time. I do think that like Games Workshop aren't wanting Blood Angel players to throw all their Sangre Guard and all their Death Company and that in the bin. I'm sure they're not. They may be wanting us to use them in a more balanced way, which I think would be totally fair to say, right? Like they're not wanting people running 30-man squad of Sangre Guard, but they're probably quite happy with people running 10 and 10 Death Company. You know, these are thematic units for the army, right? Like that should be fine. But they just obviously they haven't managed to get the balance on that right, so you're gonna have to wait a little while for it. But I think it's good that our Codex isn't here right now. Corbulo can't join a command squad. Yeah, I noticed that. That's frustrating, isn't it? Because that would have been a cool. But then the thing is, the apothecaries don't have that same rule, Highland Phoenix. So if you start attaching captains to the command squads, then you can't attach an apothecary. It's like it's only lieutenant that can be attached as well. I don't know if they'll do a Primaris Corbulo without a jump pack. Like, what would be the point? Like, unless you can attach to Blade Guard, what would be the point? Oh, Nathan said the exact same thing. Yeah, unless he attaches to Blade Guard. Good evening, Sang. How are you? Do you have any thoughts on the Sanguinor yet? Do you know what? Like, I like everything about the Sanguinor. I think it's really cool they gave him fight first. I think it's really cool they gave him lone operative. And they basically, like, because I think in 9th edition no one played him, right? Because you weren't going to play a character that would come in and then just potentially get killed before he could do anything from the miraculous savior ability. So now I think the Sanguinor is cool. Like, I like his rule. I think it's a cool, interesting idea that he gets to fight first. I think he could have some play in some lists. I'm just a little worried about the points cost, because like 160 points for a toughness 4 marine feels like a lot when you're getting... I keep coming back to armigers. Like, toughness 10, 12 wounds, a strength 12, melt to 4, 30-inch gun or something. OC8. Movement 12. Did I say that already? I don't know. I mean, 160, like 20 points more than an armiger. You know, it's funny that, because some people say like, oh, Blood Angels have to pay a tax because all of our guys have jump packs. Well, how come Knights don't have to pay a tax? Because all their guys move 12 anyway, right? I don't know. When I played the Sanguinor, I thought he was cool. And he did some cool work for me in the game that I played him with Lone Operative. I'm just not sure 160 points is the right amount of points for him. But, I mean, I guess there's a lot of stuff that the points are possibly wrong at the moment. Like, I would say Redemptor Dreadnoughts are probably like... I don't know, to me Redemptor Dreadnoughts feel like 30-something points over. Land Raiders feel a bit over. Desolation Marines, I'm probably fine with them putting the points up on them. I thought they were very good. The Indirect and the Crap Missiles combined with like the Bolter Discipline was very good. Alright. But yeah, so we'll probably see loads of points changes. I guess the question is, like, before 10th edition I was going to run out and buy more Blade Guard veterans. I'm kind of glad that I didn't now, but I also am 100% sure on like what I should be buying. Yeah, Dante is super underwhelming from my opinion anyway. Like I really wanted to like Dante. I really didn't like his 9th edition rules when they released the Primaris version of him. I was really hopeful for his 10th edition rules. But Neologistus says he's going to run 3 Armiger Warglavies for his Grey Knights to cover anti-armor. I mean, I ran 3 Warglavies to a tournament in 10th. In 9th with Blood Angels. So it was Blood Angels plus 3 Warglavies. A lot of people said I should have run Helverns, but I really like. I mean, Helverns would have been good, but the OC I had in that tournament was kind of insane. I guess it wasn't OC anymore. It was just. I mean, yeah, I guess it wasn't called OC there, but it was. I did have a kind of insane amount of OC because I had like, I think I had like multiple squads of Incursors, and then the Warglavies that I could just throw onto objectives. What ultimately scuppered the Blade Guard Veteran Bomb? I think the same thing that scuppered everything that's melee, dude, is the high toughness of enemies. You know, like if you go back, like what was the toughness of a knight before? 8? Would any of them have had 9? You know, so like worst case, your Blade Guard were probably wounding armor on like 4s. And it would be -4, and it would be 2 damage. Now it's like you're wounding on 5s, and it's -2, and they can ignore some of it, and they can potentially -1 the damage. I don't know. I mean, I think I've got Blade Guard on my list to run this week. Like I'm gonna keep experimenting with like melee units. I mean, that's what I did last week. I like really experimented with some melee units. Didn't go so well last week, but let me at least feel out like what 10 Chainfist Terminators can do. And I think Blood Angels are probably okay, or they can probably have some cool plays, because what you can do is you can use your melee units or your infantry units to tackle opponents in infantry, and you'll probably win out there. right? Like if Blood Angel's Blade Guard hit like something else infantry-wise, they probably can win. But then I think you need some anti-armor to basically hit their armor, and I think most people are looking at, like a lot of people are looking at Gladiator Lancers right now, like reliable firepower at very high toughness and D6 plus 3, so arguably the best gun that the Space Marine arsenal has, I guess, D6 plus 3. I tried to look at the Sanguinor as a definite way to bring 160 points of hurt, then potentially not have a similarly pointed squad that still has to attempt a charge. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one way to look at him. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think the Sanguinor is a bad character at all. I just don't know if I feel he's worth 160 points. Like, I guess, I need to play him in a few more games. I did run him in one game and felt like he was decent. But yeah, no, I'll play the Sanguinor again. I just don't know. I think in some matchups he's going to be brilliant. Like, maybe against, like, orcs. But yeah, I mean, I guess in some matchup as well, he could be pretty weak. He's only strength 6. I guess he's got reasonably decent AP. Painted Plastic, thank you so much for becoming a member. How are you, dude? Welcome. I got my membership goal up. Yes. I set my goal to 10 members this month. We got 8 last month, which was pretty cool. So, we're looking for 10 memberships this month. Remember, you can do gifted memberships as well.
I have awoken.
So thank you so much for becoming a member. Join our Discord. There's a members only room. You're very welcome. And that's where you get the most up-to-date stuff on Blood Angels as it stands, from me anyway. Yeah, I think if you want to get the most out of a melee squad at the moment, it feels to me like that Highland Phoenix. It feels like the Chaplain. A Firstborn Chaplain is really cheap. A Firstborn Chaplain with jump pack, is really cheap. So if you're struggling to what unit to put with a Firstborn squad, I think you want to add a Chaplain. Like, I think it's probably the most cost-effective way. It gives you +1 to wound. The only disadvantage I can see with adding the Chaplain is then there's no advantage to, like, Red Rampage, because Red Rampage is the strat that gives you Lance. You already have +1 to wound, so Lance is completely irrelevant. So it's like, add a Captain to get maybe like a free Fight on Death, or a free Lance, or a free Heroic Intervention or something. Or add the Chaplain to just have +1 to wound at all times. Then I guess every time the unit is led by a Chaplain selected to fight, you probably do a couple of mortal wounds as well. So it's like, if you're gonna, like, for me right now, I think you want your jump units to be as cheap as they possibly can be, and to make them as cheap as possible, that means Assault Marines. You probably want them to be a 10-man led by a character, because then if they're a 10-man led by a character, then you get the most bonus or the most benefit from that character, right? So running multiple captains has diminishing returns. So maybe like you want so maybe what you want is you want one squad of Assault Marines attached to a Chaplain, one squad of Assault Marines attached to a Captain, right? And so that gives you 20 jump pack models. That probably, I think, a 10 Assault Marines costs like 230 points. So 2 squads of them is like 460. The Captain and the Chaplain probably puts that up like another 150. So you're basically going to be 600 points for 20 jump Marines led by 2 characters. I'm trying to think what all. And then the squad, you can have like the Sergeant with Thunderhammer. In my case, I'm just I'm just sort of stepping away from Thunderhammers. So I guess my Sergeant's going to run an Infernal Pistol and Power Fist. And then you get a couple of Eviscerators, a couple of Melt-A-Guns, and then like... what does that leave? Like 7 guys? 6 guys with Bolt Pistol and Chainsword? Would I be able to bring Assault Marines over Death Company? Yeah, I'm gonna. It feels weird to say, but yes, I guess it's the points cost, I think. Like, Death Company, if you attack, like, Death Company to me on paper looks like it looks like Lamartez is the best option because of the lethal hits and the -1 damage, and it's hard to argue with -1 damage not being good. But like, people are still going to at the end of the day, they're still just toughness 4 Marines. They can be mopped up pretty quickly even with -1 damage. So like, saving yourself 100 points maybe with Assault Marines is just a better call. Plus, Assault Marines do the mortal wounds when they charge, which adds a bunch of reliability to their damage, it feels like. Yeah, my next list is very unlikely to have Death Company or Sanguinary Guard. And I feel and even Vanguard Vets as well. I feel genuinely, like I said, a little bit sad about that, because if you go over to the other side of my room, I literally have 3 drawers. One drawer is labelled like Death Company, one drawer is labelled like Sanguinary Guard, one drawer is labelled like Van Vets, and there's like 25, 30 completely painted models in each drawer. I can't use any, well, I can use them I suppose, but I'm not gonna use any of them because I don't think they're in a very good place, I guess. Are you still planning on delivering the Blade Guards via Land Raider? No. I felt like Land Raider was really expensive. Like really, really expensive points wise. I'm tempted to run an Impulsor and just drive it forward turn 1 and then disembark and try and get some longer charges turn 2. Maybe use Gladiators so I can advance and charge. I do want to run Blade Guard. Or I do want to try Blade Guard. But my experience, so I ran the Land Raider one time and it felt like it didn't do very much damage, and it felt really expensive. It felt like a giant tax for the assault ramp. And I don't know if I felt the tax was worth the points, right? Can Assault Marines attack turn 1? I mean, if the enemy moved towards you turn 1, yeah? I mean, Forlorn Fury is gone, so turn 1 charges are going to be just harder to do now. I mean, I guess you can take a Librarian Dreadnought and try and like yeet them forward in turn 1, but 9-inch charges, even with rerolls, are generally, I'd say, like, well, a 9-inch charge with a reroll is still less than a 50% chance. It's not much less, it's like 47, 48 or something, but it's still kind of like, going for a 9-inch charge at any point in the game is always risky. Like a tournament, you almost never want to be trying to do that 9-inch charge. If I'm going to a tournament, right, and I'm making a 9-inch charge, it's in a game that I have probably deemed unwinnable unless I make that charge, right? Like, you know, we've played a few turns, my opponent is 20 points ahead. I think to myself, like, there's no way I can win this game unless I can kill this one unit in this one position and maybe like flip this one objective. So I'm willing to, basically stake my tournament lifeline, if you like, on this 9-inch charge. Like, on a normal game, I feel like I never want to be making a 9-inch charge. Like, if it's an even game, right, like anyone can win, I'm probably not going to try and do a 9-inch charge because, you know, well, it's less than a 50% chance. So, like, the odds are bad. What do I think is not too expensive, said Podgar. Gladiator Lancers are really good for the price. I still think Desolation Marines are really good for their price. I think a repulsor, like not the executioner, the regular repulsor is pretty good for the price if you're just looking to transport a bunch of bodies up the board and you want them in a toughness 12 box, I guess, with 16 wounds. Predators, pretty cheap, seem like they're pretty good. Assault Marines seem really good. Like Captain on a jump pack, Chaplain in a jump pack. They seem fine, they seem cheap, they seem nice. Let me think what else. I was going to say the Storm Speeder feels maybe a little bit expensive, but if you're building a pretty heavily shooting list, I think it's invaluable because getting +1 to shoot from the rest of your army, +1 to wound from the rest of your army and shooting can basically be like the difference between you killing your target and or not killing it. So I've run the Storm Speeder twice. It's 160 points. Yes, it might be quite high, but you know, if you're fighting like really tough to kill enemies and you just got +1 to wound in shooting for everything else in your army, then I feel like that's really worth it. How do I feel about Grav Cannon Devastators? I mean, I don't mind Grav Cannon Devastators. I think the problem, though, I worry with the Grav Cannons is the lack of AP, right? Is there a strat you can use? Can you use Storm of Fire or something to give them +1 AP? I guess you probably could, right? I mean, I like anti-vehicle 2+. I think that's cool. I think that is reasonably strong, right? I don't really own any Grav Cannon Devastators, of course. All my Devastators are built with multi-matas, las cannons, or I guess I've got a bunch with missile launchers. If we don't get a strat that helps with charges, you're going to riot. Well, I mean, that's why I'm running Gladiators, because if we talk about Blood Angels over the last year or longer than a year, probably, like most of the time we talk about the reason Blood Angels are so strong is our movement is so good. Well, our movement's been hurt, right? I mean, yes, our ability to wound the enemy has been hurt as well, but if we, like, I think the biggest trait that we have was our speed and our movement. Well, Gladiators gives us more speed and more movement with the ability to basically advance and charge for the whole turn for every unit in your army, and also at any point put any one unit into advance and charge. And I feel like there's a lot of turns, you know, like if you're going to rapid ingress Terminators, for example, then potentially the enemy will not be close to you know, you rapid ingress, you move up, you're going to make the right charge on the right target. Being able to advance on those slow Terminators is probably going to be really important, I feel like. Sniper Scouts. Yeah, so I've used Sniper Scouts multiple times now, Highland Phoenix. I mean, the fact that they can hold an objective and not be shot is great. I feel like their damage output, though, is meh. Because, yes, they stand still on the objective that they can't be shot on, and they hit on 2s, but then you're only strength 4. So, I mean, I guess if the enemy has a bunch of infantry they can see, they might be okay. But, like, if you're playing, you know, I don't know. I guess if you're playing anything that's above strength 4, you're not going to do any damage. Maybe, I guess, you'll do... Do Scout Snipers have any keywords on their guns? I feel like they don't, but I could be remembering incorrectly. Good evening, Jim. When I fought the Chaos Warhound, the Storm Speeder was the first target. Yeah, I mean, of course the Storm Speeder is going to be the target. But the Storm Speeder is really good. If you are leaning into a shooting list, Like, if you have a lot of stuff that's going to shoot, then, like I said, giving the whole unit or the whole rest of your army +1 to wound and shooting is really, really strong if you're trying to take out a specific monster or vehicle character. So I feel like I'm very sold on the Storm Speeder, even though it is quite an expensive model, I guess, in terms of like what is it, 160 points, and it's just got a few damage 3 guns on it. They have precision, do they? Okay. I mean, I think the issue with their precision, though, is like you're going to need the whole squad to see the character. In the games I've played, the scout snipers, they've done chip damage, right? Like really crappy chip damage here and there. The thing that they've been good at is like holding an objective and not being able to be shot. So, I guess if you're aware that that's what they're going to do, then maybe it's fine, right? What about the Eliminators? Well, I mean, the Eliminators come back to the same problem where, like, they're strength 9. So, I mean, I guess if they're an anti-infantry unit, they're fine, but the second you start trying to shoot vehicles and stuff, then they're not good. I think, having played a few games now and having most of them, I think, yeah, most of the games I played, I had a decent amount of shooting in my list. Maybe that last game I didn't, but the other ones I did, right? Most of the games where I had a decent amount of shooting in my list, I feel like shooting armor at less than strength 10 is just bad. Strength 10 is like the minimum you can have. Because even strength 10, sometimes you will wound on 5s, but you will get the odd time you wound on 4s. Whereas like, if you're strength 8, it's just like, well, you just always wound on 5s into armor now. And that's why I think someone asked about Eradicators earlier, and because I tried them just this week past, and honestly I don't think I'll play Eradicators again unless they increase the strength in their melta, because at strength 8 they're just not reliable at all. They're supposed to be a unit focused for killing armor. Well, they don't do that anymore. Wounding on 5s, even with rerolls, is unreliable at best, I guess. The thing I'm seeing so far is if you want to play Blood Angels, you need to disguise yourself as Iron Hands. I think that's not how I'm seeing it, but the way I'm seeing it is it's much more, in some ways, for me, it's much more like I used to play Blood Angels in 2nd edition, and when you played Blood Angels in 2nd edition, you played like a shooting Space Marine chapter, and you had a sprinkle on top of melee, because in 2nd edition you could only have 1 squad of Death Company. So I think like that might have been your only dedicated melee unit. Like, you know, like I said, you had 1 big large squad of Death Company, because I don't think there was a limit on how big that. I actually don't think there was a limit on how big the Death Company could be. I think it could be up to like 30 models in 2nd edition or something. So you played primarily a Space Marine chapter with a lot of tactical squads and a lot of armor, and then you sprinkled in on top your melee stuff, and that's kind of how it. I think that's kind of how it's going to feel. So finding how much armor that you want, and I think because I was building a list for Andrew, because me and Andrew are going to play this week. Andrew's back. He hasn't been on the channel for a while. So I was building a list to play Andrew, and I was thinking that, like, I want a 10-man assault squad led by a character. I want 6 Blade Guard veterans led by a character. So that puts me at like 650 maybe points for the, because Blade Guard are 200, Assault Marines are 230, so that's 430. Add in like 2 more characters, let's just say like another 200, so 630. Characters might be a little bit cheaper, so like 600 points of melee. I don't think you can go much harder than that on the melee. Like, I think 600 points is probably it. Like, the other 1400 points of your list needs to have like heavy support, firepower, and a bunch of armor that can actually take a bunch of damage and still be alive. I think. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and then I think that's why I think Sons of Sanguinius is not good, because if you think about Sons of Sanguinius, I don't necessarily think it's not good. I think a better way would probably be to say it's not optimal, right? Because you only have 600 points of armor. You aren't going to need +1 strength and +1 attack when your Land Raider charges. I mean, yeah, sure, it would be nice to have 1 more attack on your Land Raider when it's charging, but you're not going to win the game because your Land Raider has 1 more attack, or you're not going to win the game because your Predator Annihilator has 1 more attack and 1 more strength in melee, right? Would you win the game if you had the ability to go Devastator Doctrine and advance and shoot all your tanks? Maybe, you know? So it's like Gladiator has that flexibility. Would you win the game if you can put your whole army into fall back and shoot and charge for a turn? Maybe. So, Jim says Scout Snipers are the best unit point for point. Alright, let's see why, Jim. Just being able to hold the back without being shot is huge. Yeah, I mean, Blood Angels or Space Marines have struggled in previous editions to try and hold like backfield objectives and not being shot. So I can get that. I can understand that. And do you know what? I don't know if I've got Scout Snipers planned for my list this week, but the 2 times I ran Scout Snipers, they did just that. They hold some objective, they can't be shot. I feel like they're not a bad unit. I don't think they're a great unit. Like I said, they maybe just do chip damage. But I guess if you just want 75 points that can hold something and be pretty survivable, then I guess Scout Snipers are said unit for that. So it's good to see this. Like, nobody ran snipers in 9th, so I suppose it's good to get some of them back and see them at least getting a bit of action. But don't know if I agree that they're the best unit point for point. They're a very useful unit, that's for sure. They're a scoring unit, might be a better way to talk about them. And it's fine to have scoring units, like it's important to have scoring units, right? Mike says he plays 11 75 points of melee now, and I definitely prefer Sun's Detachment. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's Assassins. Have you played against the Knights yet? Because I think for me, I got completely unstuck against the Knights. I played a lot of melee and just couldn't drop any of the big Knights. They're too survivable, and you know, I charged one of the big Knights with Oath of Moment Chain Fist Terminators and couldn't drop it. Like a huge big squad of them as well. Like I think there was 7 Chain Fist Terminators and a captain that charged the big knight. And I think we only brought it down to about, like maybe like 13 wounds or something. Like it was really underwhelming. I think it still had 8 or 9 left. Like we didn't even manage to bracket it. And obviously Chain Fists have anti-vehicle 3+. That's why I took them, because I knew I was playing Knights, and I was like, oh yeah, anti-vehicle 3+ with Oath of Moment, so I'm getting +1 to hit because Terminators have that Oath of Moment buff. So I'm getting +1 to hit with the Terminators into my Oath of Moment target. I'm rerolling all hits and all wounds. And like 7 Chain Fist Terminators and a Terminator Captain can only do like 13 or 14 damage against against a large knight. I mean, one of the things that actually surprised me with that is, I don't know if you remember, Chain Fists used to be -4 AP. So with Blood Angels, they used to be -5. So they used to just rip through vehicles. Well, now they're like -2. And some of those big knights save on a 2-up, so you can just laugh at the Chain Fists. Doesn't matter, they have anti-vehicle 3-up. Going back to the land speeder, is it better to take a unit of incursors as they give +1 to hit on the target? I mean, I think incursors and land speeders are both good. I guess it's how you work them into your list. The only thing to remember, I think, is the land speeder lets you get +1 to hit and ignore cover, but only on blast weapons. So because if you run a lot of blast weapons, you could argue the land speeder is the better choice. Hard to say precisely, right? I think we're still in a stage where like people need to try, like, we can talk about combos all we want on the channel, and I guess we do, but sometimes like you gotta try the combo. If you think like incursors will be really good with their +1 to hit in shooting, then you really need to try it out like 3 times, because you know, like sometimes in a battle, like you're always going to lose some units. So like if incursors are going to give you +1 to hit, then arguably those incursors might need to put themselves in a bit of a dangerous position to get that +1. So you need to play some games with them and go like, yeah, actually I don't like this because my incursors are always left super exposed from getting me +1 to hit, and then they always just die, and I feel like that's actually a negative trade for me. But it's all about, I guess, like a bit of repetition and a bit of like learning and stuff, and it's still very early days in 10th edition, right? But yeah, this is one of the reasons a lot of people are like rushing around trying to get to their first 10th edition tournament. I'm taking my time. One, I feel like I'm sure I'm still making some mistakes when I'm playing the rules, and 2, it's kind of a completely different game now. Maybe not so much for other chapters, but for Blood Angels it's completely different. Two Scoops think Scout Snipers are like Voidsmen, but way better. I mean, they're don't get me wrong, I've run the Scout Snipers twice. I've only played 4 games, so I've literally run them in 50% of my games. Their damage, for me, their damage in the 2 games I run them in, I'm trying to think. I think I used them against Eldar and Knights. So yeah, maybe, I mean, I'm probably skewed by the fact that Eldar and Knights are probably both overpowered still. They probably will be overpowered for like 6 months, right? Well, they said there's a new data slate coming in, like, is it August, the new data slate? It feels like a long time to wait. But I guess it'll give them enough time to get a bunch of data about 10th edition tournament games, and it'll help them figure out like what's good and what's not. But yeah, so it's a weird one. Like, if you rush out right now and buy 2 or 3 Gladiator Lancers, if you have none, I was going to say, just be prepared that come August, you'll see those things go rocketing up in price. Good evening, John. How are you? There's a fix where they take out all the typos and address the issues, supposedly before August. Well, I mean, that would be nice. I mean, there's still some mistakes here and there, you know, like Librarian Dreadnoughts don't have the smoke keyword. They probably should have the smoke keyword because they have smoke launchers in their picture. You know, there's definitely like some problems that it's hard to know what they will fix and what they won't fix, I guess. I don't know how yeah, I don't know what. It's a party tonight because I'm actually just doing some really old models tonight. Because I feel like I have no idea what's happening with making a melee Blood Angels army list. Like, it's just a very different situation now, right? Where it's like, you can't solve the armor problem in any way, shape, or form with infantry now. I was going to say maybe out with Desolation Marines, I guess. Command Sword grab guns only have 1 damage when it's a 2 damage weapon everywhere else. They must have known that you were going to make Command Squads Highland and decided to make it more difficult for you to cheese, I think. I was going to say, what's the play behind a command squad with is it like 2 grav cannons and a grav gun on the sergeant? Like, surely that's like, you want the command squad to try and take out vehicles? I think it's kind of cool that Standard Assault Marines are a real choice and the Death Company and Sanguinior aren't auto takes. I mean, I could understand what you're saying, David, but I think Sanguinior and Death Company should be good for Blood Angels. And I think it's a little bit sad that regular Assault Marines are actually better. I mean, what's the point of the special models if they're just flat out worse than Assault Marines, or they're costed so high that people are just going to run Assault Marines? I feel a little bit sad about that, right? Like, like I said earlier in the stream, I have shelves full of like painted Vanguard veterans, painted Death Company and Sanguinior, and like just seeing all that hard work sit on my shelf and like basically have no play at the moment. We're just going to use standard Assault Marines, which apparently I've never really collected, because I guess I just always collected Death Company with jump packs because they're so iconic for Blood Angels. I never liked when they had it where like everybody just wanted to run, what was it? It was like everybody wanted to run 3 squads of Death Company and 3 swords of Sanguinior because they were by far the best models. I never liked that. So I mean, I guess maybe I understand a little bit what you're saying. But I think it shouldn't, like, I don't think anyone's, maybe some people are sticking with Sanguinior and just running them at like 430 points. But for me, like, they just seem drastically too expensive. Like, just a point where, like, I just cannot even feel like... Oh, excuse me. Like, I just cannot feel like I can consider them at all at that amount of points. Mike says the 10-man Death Company with the Infernal Pistols worked very well with the Thunderstrike. You know, I never ran the 10 Death Company with Infernal Pistols with Thunderstrike, I guess, or... But yeah, maybe that helps the reliability of those Infernal Pistols a lot. Yeah, I mean... It's a lot of... You get 10... If you get all 10 in range and you shoot all 10, then yeah, I guess getting +1 to wound on all 10 would help a ton. Yeah, so, well, I mean, I said earlier that I felt the Thunderstrike was kind of expensive, but also kind of worth it. I feel like that's probably pretty accurate. If they hadn't sent the Horus Heresy stuff to Legends, we would have had 2 great anti-armor options. Dude, I have the best anti-armor option. Which is the Falchion, dude. Like, I was so excited, honestly, Nathan. When I saw the stats on a twin-linked volcano cannon, I was so excited. And then before I even get to play it one time, it's moved to Legends. Oh, it's so annoying. I think the twin-linked volcano cannon had the potential to do like 72 mortal wounds. Or maybe it was 60. It was something disgusting. That would have been good against every vehicle in the game. I mean, it was... The Falchion is basically it was always... it was called the Super Heavy Falchion Tank Destroyer, I think is its full title. Not many people called it that, but... Now that I'm gonna have to Google it. It was called Falchion Super Heavy Tank Destroyer. Yeah, that's what it was called, man. I bought that in like 8th edition when Andrew just kept running knights against me constantly. One day I just snapped and was like, screw it, I'm buying the Falchion. And it was just so much fun. I feel very sad I can't run it anymore. What's the consensus on the command squad? Didn't get to see a full game against the Knights. It did terrible in the game against the Knights, but pretty much my whole army did terrible in the game against the Knights, John. The command squad with Tycho, I think, is a very good anti-infantry unit. But, I mean, if you run it into stuff that isn't infantry, then obviously it's not going to be that good. But it's great into infantry. I'm seeing some people switch to Inceptors. I kind of wanted to run just a 3-man squad of Inceptors because they would be just a nuisance. For any objective the opponent doesn't control very strongly with infantry, you could just potentially snipe it off them. I could see some play around Inceptors, yeah. 115 points. I actually thought, I looked at them and thought, the Bolters don't look too bad either. Depends on what infantry people are going to hold objectives with. Oh shit, that's my daughter up. One sec. I don't think that they're planning on having the Blood Angels special units use their specialness. I think they've lost their specialness because we're in a state where it's an index and people don't have their proper codexes, and they'll figure out the points. Like, they will figure out the points for those units. They'll be pointed better, I guess, and they'll be pointed more competitively. Like, if the win rate for Blood Angels is still as trash as it was, like, was it last weekend or the weekend before, where Blood Angels had like a 35% win rate? Maybe that's a good thing, right? Because, like, if our win rate is complete trash, then they'll have to patch it, because they typically don't leave people with crappy win rates. Like, they look at the army objectively and say, right, we're changing this because they've got a crappy win rate. So, plus it also means if our codex is a little bit away, then it means that when they come to be right, like, if you know, I don't know what the lead time on the codex is, when they're coming to the Codex, if they go, Blood Angels have a really crappy win rate, then I mean, I guess they'll maybe spend a bit more time looking at the Codex. Because I felt like our 9th edition Codex was just a carbon copy of the 8th edition. It came out too early in the edition, and no one really... Well, they didn't even change very much stuff, right? Whereas, like, I don't know if any of you guys remember back to 8th, but at the start of 8th edition, I don't think Blood Angels were very good. I was playing them at the start of 8th. I didn't have the channel at the start of 8th. I started this channel during 9th. Have I won a game yet, Daniel? No. Have I played any... I've played one game that was probably winnable, which was the Demon game, which I lost by like 3 points. The Knights games were horrific, and the Elder game was kind of horrific as well. Yeah, at the start of 8th edition, I didn't think we were in a very good spot. And I guess Games Workshop probably didn't think we were in a very good spot either, because in 8th edition, when you remember the Psychic Awakening book came out, I think it's behind me. It was called Blood of Baal, that book up there. That was the book that had Mephisto on the front cover. That book was the book that had Savage Echoes in it. Before that book, we never had Savage Echoes. And when that book came out, we had a giant power spike in 8th edition. Like, I don't think we were a bad army in 8th, but I don't know if we were, like, brilliant. And then we got that Savage Echoes rule, which was basically like, when we're in the Assault Doctrine, we're now getting, like, more EP and more attacks. And then it was all of a sudden, it was like, alright, we just kill you so hard in melee now. We're in a great place now. This is great. So... But that wasn't, that wasn't the start of the edition. That was a book that came out, like, I think Psychic Awakening honestly came out possibly towards the end of the 9th edition? 8th edition, sorry. Maybe they'll give us +1 wound. I think it would have been better if they'd given us +1 AP, honestly, over +1 strength. I think that would actually have maybe balanced us better, but I guess we'll see. We'll find out when they actually do codexes, right? But hey, I've been right about a bunch of things, because I'd said, like, for the longest time, the Baal Predator would actually be useful if they would make its weapons assault when it advanced. And, like, we got that. Like, people had been crying out for that, saying, like, this would actually make the Baal Predator useful if they would make its flamers assault when it advanced. Well, we didn't quite get that. We got the flamers are assault when you shoot infantry when it advanced. But I mean, it's still a cool, flavorful rule, I guess. And I honestly don't know why they just made it infantry, because I don't. Flamers are never going to kill vehicles. They probably should kill swarms, or they should kill beasts because it's bloody flamers. But they just made it infantry. But I suppose it's better than nothing, right? Early 8th edition Marines were trash. Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to remember the beginning of 8th, but I do remember that it got so much better once we got Savage Echoes. I remember once Savage Echoes came out, I was like, well, maybe in 8th Blood Angels just had that 129 point jump captain. I seem to remember that. We could have, like, the Thunderhammer captain, we could buff the crap out of him, and he could single-handedly kill a knight in one turn. I think I killed an Astraeus in one turn, which was like a 600... I think Astraeuses were over 600 points back then. I think I killed an Astraeus in one turn with a 129 point jump captain. Yeah, I had to burst a bunch of stratagems on it, but it was still worth it, I guess. Got a game against Gene Stealer's Cults tomorrow, playing as Iron Hands through Ferris is the closest thing into a melee unit in the list. Well, good luck. I've heard GSC are very strong. I don't know if they are, but I've heard they're strong. Anthony says, Full Predator with flames is amazing. Yeah, I think it's pretty decent. I've used it once with the full flamers. I guess it's very decent for Overwatch. I mean, arguably it's the best thing we've got for Overwatch, probably. But only going to be good against like lower toughness things for Overwatch, right? Like anything above toughness 6, then I guess the Overwatch potential is lost pretty much. Well, maybe not completely lost, but it'll be significantly diminished. Probably the only thing that does Overwatch better than the Ball Predator now is Desolation Marines. They probably do it better. But maybe you need to use... Yeah, maybe they would have to... Maybe they do it better if they've got Bolter Discipline and Oath of Moment on the target. Otherwise, it's probably the Ball Predator. You should try running 3 Death Company Dreadnoughts as missiles, basically. Like, I think if the Death Company Dreadnought, you're going to need to reserve it to make it work, right? And it's 195 points, so I think it's going to be hard to reserve. Well, you literally can't reserve 3 of them. You can reserve 2 of them. I used the Death Company Dreadnought in the game against Knights, and while it was great that it came in and it got a 7-inch charge and it basically fought one of the Knights to the death, because the second the Knight attacks it can fight again. Everything for that part of the Death Company Dreadnought seems sweet. The problem that you've got then is you've got a 0 OC Dreadnought sitting on an objective, and 0 OC actually does fuck all for you. So you don't control the objective. I guess if you want to run Death Company Dreadnoughts and make them work, I feel like you just need to make sure that there's a bunch of chaplains elsewhere in your list. So you can... And I was thinking, like, you know, a lot of people run the chaplain on the bike in previous editions. He was pretty useful. Maybe he could attach to a small squad of outriders, and maybe they could just be like a scouting unit somewhere. You could move them with the bikes to try and make sure that you're in range when that Death Company Dreadnought comes in and kills the thing on the target. Like, I think there's potentially a play there. I just don't know what it is. I'd still rather take the heavy spawns on the ball, the heavy bolters. Well, I mean, I guess if you're going Overwatch, I can understand why you would take the Flamers, Highland Phoenix. The Redeemer says hello. Well, yeah, I mean, the Redeemer Flamers are actually really good. Like, really, really good. I guess that's why the Redeemer is 295 points, but honestly, I think that's too many points for a Redeemer, because, like, a lot of points to pay for a vehicle with no invuln save. And I guess you could argue, yes, it has a really good toughness and it has a really good... You know, it's got the best save it can get from a 2-up, and I guess you could put it in cover and be on a 1-up, but, like... I don't really get why they don't just give it an invuln. Like, you could easily have a 5-up invuln. Same as Mephiston, I guess. You know, like, for the longest time they were complaining, like, we don't understand why Mephiston doesn't have an invuln. Well, he's got one now, I guess. And everybody that I've talked to about it is like, cool, Mephiston finally got an invuln. That makes sense. Like, he should never have not had an invuln. Maybe one day Sanguinary Guard will get an invuln and we'll be like, yes, that makes sense. They all wear Artificer armor. That's right. They should never have not have had an invuln. Or maybe I'm just dreaming, right? The Redeemer's pretty wild in Overwatch. Yeah, I mean, the sponsons are... Well, I mean, it's short range. I think that's why people are taking the Ball Predator, right? Because D6 plus 3 18 inches is pretty good for Overwatch. And I guess if it's like a blast unit, you could potentially very quickly get, like, it would be if it's a 10-man blast, it would be D6 plus 5 on the Ball Predator, which is which is very, very, very good auto-hitting anti-infantry Overwatch, I guess. Like, kind of makes those new new Infernus Marines look a bit rubbish, right? The Ball Predator. Alright, I'm starting to get pretty tired. How long have I been live for? Coming up to 2 hours. Cool. I'm also struggling to see a little bit, like my eyes are getting a bit tired. So I probably got like 5-10 more minutes. If you got any real big pressing Blood Angels questions, put them in chat just now. Otherwise I'll have to answer them in the next stream. Or you can leave me a YouTube comment. Invulns warp the meta. It's hard to cost and save. I mean, well, you could say that, but like then look at like Eldar, where every stupid little aspect warrior has an Invuln in it. I suppose you're probably right. It does warp the meta, right? What are we thinking about home field objective holders? I think a lot of people are thinking scouts with sniper rifles. Some people maybe still thinking like a whirlwind. Excuse me. I suppose you could leave 3 Blade Guard if you're willing to pay 100 points on it. Chris says I've been reading Suppressors are a great Blood Angels pick. Are they? Actually, don't really know what... I thought Suppressors just made the enemy -1 to hit. I think they're strength 8 -1 2 damage. Peachmonger, thank you so much for subscribing. I do appreciate it. You have a Firestorm servo turret? Cool, I've got one. I've got one with the Las Talons. I think they actually buffed the range on it. I think the Las Talon on the Firestorm used to be 24. I think they've buffed it to 36, but I mean, no one really runs Firestorm turrets. It's weird, they didn't really get the bonus armor like all the other armor and stuff got. I think they're still toughness 5, right? The Firestorms? I did see someone talking about suppressors, saying like run multiple squads of suppressors because then you could make the enemy like multiple. You could make them -1 to hit multiple times, but that doesn't matter, right? You can never have more than -1 or +1 to hit and wound. So it doesn't matter if you've got 3 squads of suppressors. You can't make them -3 to hit. They're going to be -1 to hit because that's the most you can shift that dice roll by. Has anyone ever tried painting Sanguinor Guard as Death Company? I'm sure I've seen people do that. I've also seen some people paint like white Sanguinor Guard. They look kind of sick. Suppressors hitting on 4s, getting the bin. I think they are more reliable now, I thought, right? Because their weapons are heavy, so... Actually, I have no idea what suppressors... Let me pull up the Codex. We'll tell you if they think they're shit or not. I thought I looked at them and thought, okay, they're a bit better. Let me see. Suppressors. The all cannons are heavy, hitting on 4s. So I guess if you stand still, you hit on 3s. That's what they were before, right? They were 3s, but they were -1 if you moved. I mean, they got 1 more strength. In your shooting phase after this unit is shot, select one enemy that's hit by 1 or more of these attacks until the start of the next turn. is said to be suppressed, and they make a -1 to their hit roll. I mean, it's good that you can suppress anything, because I think in the previous edition you could only suppress infantry. So yeah, I mean, I guess if they've got a big giant knight or something, and you just hit it with a suppressor so it's -1 to hit, it could be valuable. I mean, it's not horrible. I mean, I guess they're better than they were, because before it was like they denied infantry Overwatch, I think. So they were like good into Tau, but kind of crap into everybody else. So I guess now, you know, making one like if the enemy have like a really expensive model, like a centerpiece type character, and you can just, you know, I'm thinking like a Bloodthirster of Khorne or something, like something giant that's going to cause problems all over the battlefield. If you can just keep hitting it every turn and making it -1 to hit, and it's not a bad debuff to have. You know, basically like an enemy model hits 16% less is essentially what you're saying, which in turn it means you, if you hit 16% less, then you do like 10% less damage, because obviously you got to factor in wound rolls and stuff like that. If you can just take an enemy model and say, like, for the whole, I'm going to sit 48 inches away, I'm going to do chip damage to every turn with my strength 8 -1, and you're also going to be -1 to hit with that model for the whole game. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's bad. I don't know if it's great. I don't think it's bad. Terry says, do you prefer Astaroth or Lamartes? I think I prefer Lamartes. I think the -1 damage on the Death Company is probably more useful. Astaroth doesn't synergize with Thunderhammers all that well, so like if you wanted to run Thunderhammer Death Company, you probably don't want to run Astaroth. Yeah, I think I prefer Lamartes. But I think the bigger argument might be like Lamartes versus just like a chaplain with a jump pack, like no named character. Because the chaplain with, if you're trying to keep things cheap, the chaplain with the jump pack, no named character is actually pretty decent as well. Astaroth actually has his own squad. I'm trying to think, I just read the Astaroth book recently, like not that long ago at all. When did I read the Astaroth book? He didn't have his own... He had like an entourage, but he didn't have like his own squad of Sangre Guard or anything like that in the book. Alex, thanks so much for watching. It'll be a while before I have a half-decent list as well, I bet, so don't worry about it too much. Highland Phoenix says, my current list has a Terminator Chaplain, a Jump Chaplain, and a Bite Chaplain. You're just trying to stack +1 to wound army. Well, you're just trying to live the dream of what we had before, huh, Highland? I mean, I think there is something to be said about just +1 to wound being... But are you going to run the Sanguinius detachment then, or are you going to run the Gladiators detachment? Chris is bound. Yeah, I'm bouncing off to bed in like 2 minutes, guys. Thanks so much for watching tonight. If you haven't yet clicked the like button on the video, I do appreciate it if you'd consider doing that. And thank you so much to everyone that subscribed and became a member tonight. Memberships are the best way that you can support the channel. I do really appreciate them. I was going to say, I mean, next couple, I think I'm going to do a video in the next couple of weeks comparing lethal hits to +1 to wound, because I think that's interesting, especially with Lamartez and the cost and the chaplain, right? And then I guess, yeah, so I feel like that's one of the videos that's on my radar to do for sure. John says he would take the servo turret over suppressors. They're also 95 points. Yeah, I mean, suppressors never even got their own kit released, eh? Like, I don't think there's any way you can buy them at the moment. I remember when they came out, they were so, like, everyone was so excited about Marines with autocannons. Really didn't turn out, did it? I'm hearing a baby crying, so yeah, I'm gonna probably need to bounce off, guys. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Please please leave a like on the stream, leave me a comment if you've got one. I think we're gonna maybe do an army list show tomorrow. Maybe. We'll maybe look at some armies tomorrow. We'll see. I think so. I'm just grateful Highland talked you into buying 2 gladiators. I mean, I do worry a little bit about, like, gladiators going to be nerfed now that everybody's jumping on the gladiator train. It seems like everyone's going to have 3 lancers every list. I have 1 gladiator, but I can't decide if I want to rush out and buy another one yet. So it's probably a good idea to get one, but just worried that the second I get it, it'll be like, boom, up 200 points or something. It's usually the way things go, isn't it? Maybe 200, yeah, 200 is not an accurate number, that's just over-exaggeration on my part, sorry. I'm tired. I'm going to throw basically white on this one last guy's helmet. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'm probably going to give them yellow helmets, and it's just easier to paint yellow over white than it is over red. Everyone's running Lancers, and I'm over here with 2 Predators Destructors. Do you know what? I've got a bunch of Predator Destructors as well. I was going to run some of them. I think the autocannon might actually be quite good. Like, if you're going to run the Thunder Strike, then the autocannon is probably fine on the Predator, right? And the autocannon could actually be quite versatile. I feel. I could be wrong, I suppose. I mean, I haven't won a game. Someone literally came into the stream to ask if I'd won a game yet. No, I haven't won a game. I suck at 10th edition. Haven't figured it out. Well, I mean, I've been trying to run. I've spent 4 games trying to run the Blood Angels units against the really meta stuff. And I guess what I've learned is that the Blood Angel stuff doesn't work against the really meta stuff. So I'm probably going to play a meta list again this week, but this time I'll just take meta Space Marines myself and see how we get on, right? Alright, thanks for you staying to the end of the stream, guys. It was really nice to see you all. Thanks for all the comments. I'll probably be live tomorrow night about 9:30 UK time. I'll see a bunch of you guys then. Ed says they've moved us into Red Ultramarines. I think, Ed, it's too early. Like, we're playing on the Index. The Index isn't a Codex. Yes, at the moment we've lost some chapter identity. I'm convinced they'll bring it back. I just think that they're not there yet. And they've balanced our models poorly. So people are thinking it's worse than it is. So that's my 2 cents at the moment. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night, peace. Take care, Brock. Nice to see you.